There's this math problem that I haven't been able to stop thinking about for the last 5 years, and I thought it's finally time to make a video on it. The reason I love this problem is because it's like an onion in that it makes me cry.
That's not the line.
Oh, that's not the line?
Check the script, man.
Oh, I see, I got it. The reason I love this problem is because it's like an onion in that it has layers upon layers upon layers. On multiple occasions, I thought I was done thinking about this problem, only to have it resurface in a different form a year later. Without further ado, let's talk about the deceptively simple problem called Guess 2/3 the Average. Now the game is simple. You're in a room with lots of people, and let's say this is you. We might need some way to tell you apart, so let's give you some shoes. Shoes. Let's assume that everybody in this room is perfectly rational. And furthermore, everybody knows that everybody is rational. And furthermore, let's assume that everybody knows that everybody knows that everybody is rational, also known as common knowledge of rationality. Now the game works like this. Each person gets to write down a guess between 0 and 100 and secretly submits that guess. We then take the average of all of the guesses, and the person who gets closest to 2/3 of that average will win a bunch of money. If there happens to be a tie, we split the money equally. Now, given these very simple rules, what do you write down as your guess? Let's think through this. A natural first guess is to reason that the highest number you could write is 100, and so perhaps 2/3 of 100, or 66.7, is the best guess. Now, moving into stage 2 of reasoning, you reason that if everyone is thinking this way and submits 66.7, then 2/3 of the average will actually end up being 2/3 of 66.7, which is 44.4. So you're actually better off guessing 44.4 if you want to win. But remember that we're assuming common knowledge of rationality. So everybody goes through this exact same thought process, so that at this point, everyone is guessing 44.4. Moving into stage 3 of reasoning, everybody believes that everybody else will write down 44.4, and so they're all better off guessing 2/3 of 44.4, which is 29.6. And the reasoning just keeps going, so that at stage K, everybody's going to reason that they'd best guess 2/3 to the power of K times 100 if they want to win. As we continue this reasoning process indefinitely, letting K approach infinity, we see that in the equilibrium, everyone is actually guessing 0. And this, believe it or not, is truly the answer to this problem. If that seems crazy, first off, you're not alone. This seemed very strange the first time I learned it. But thinking a little bit deeper, if everyone puts 0, and everyone reasons that everyone else is going to put 0, then there's no incentive, there's no reason for anyone to guess anything other than 0 because it's only going to ensure their defeat. So at the end of the day, everybody guesses 0 and everybody shares the money equally. Now, let me ask you a question. Knowing all of this analysis, if you entered a room full of complete strangers and were asked to play this game, what would you guess? I'm going to go ahead and say you're a little bit apprehensive about guessing 0, even with all of the analysis that we just did. And, well, it's because you just don't know what's going on in other people's heads. Remember how at the very beginning we assumed a couple of things? We assumed everyone was rational. We assumed that everybody knew that everybody is rational. And we assumed that everybody knew that everybody knew that everybody is rational. How true do you think this is in the real world? Humans can be notoriously irrational, and they can also make bad judgments about the rationality of others. All of this uncertainty means that the utopian analysis we just did doesn't map super well to our noisy world. So let's take another stab at this. Let's relax that first assumption, where we assume that everybody in the room is rational. And instead, let's say that any given person is rational with probability p. For example, if p is equal to 1/2, then 1 out of every 2 people is rational. Those who are not rational will just randomly guess a number between 0 and 100. P might be very high if you're playing this game at an economics convention for PhDs. On the other hand, P might be very low if you're playing this game at a bar where everybody is drunk. How does this more realistic assumption affect our analysis? Well, let's pretend that we're one of the rational people in the room. We know that the average of all of the guesses will end up being a weighted average of the value that rational people are guessing, let's call that G, and the value that all irrational people are guessing, which is on average 50. Now it seems like we have two unknowns here, mu and G, but we know that each rational person will be working through this equation for themselves, and will pick a guess which is exactly 2/3 of the average, which is the quantity mu on the left-hand side of this equation. Now we can solve this for mu, and then take 2/3 of this to get G. Solving, we get that G is equal to 100 times 1 minus P, all divided by 3 minus 2P. But forget about the mathematical form. What is this equation really trying to tell us? If P approaches 1, meaning almost everybody is rational, then we actually get back to the perfect world, and our best guess should be 0. However, if P approaches 0, meaning almost nobody is rational, then we get that the best guess for any remaining rational person in the room should be 33.3, also known as 2/3 of 50, which is the average guess for irrational people in the room, which are going to be making up most of the population if P is equal to 0. We can plot this curve to see what happens between P equals 0 and P equals 1. We see this really cool decreasing shape. If we're at a nerdy economics convention and we expect most of the people in the room to be rational thinkers, we should guess a pretty low value. However, if we're playing this game at a bar well into the night, you might want to guess some higher values. Now, we could stop here, but this onion problem just keeps on going. We still haven't addressed the second assumption about knowledge of rationality. I mean, think about it. Even if you are rational yourself, how often do you walk into a room of people and automatically just know that they are all rational? Let's do one final variant, where everybody in the room is actually rational, but here's the catch. Each of them isn't sure if the others are rational. In fact, they each assign a probability P to other people in the room being rational thinkers. What do you think would happen in this case? Well, thinking about it from your perspective, this is exactly like the last variant. And so you work through the exact same math to get the exact same optimal guess. And everybody else arrives at the exact same conclusion as well. But, crucially, unlike the last case, where everyone was correct in assuming that the probability of rationality is P, in this variant, every single person in the room is actually perfectly rational. So this crazy thing happens where they all submit a guess of 100 times 1 minus P over 3 minus 2P, making the actual 2/3 of the average equal to 2/3 of that value. Strangely enough, they're all wrong, but they're all wrong by the same amount, and so they all share the money equally. And this variant just gets crazier and crazier. Let's say another person entered this game who had full knowledge of what was going on. They themselves are rational, they know everyone else is perfectly rational, and most importantly, they know that everyone is unsure of everyone else's rationality. They can simply just guess 66.7 times 1 minus P all over 3 minus 2P and single-handedly take home all of the money for themselves. Personally, I really like this variant because it shows the power that a seemingly small amount of additional information can provide. I think we've explored more than enough for one video, but here are a couple of other extensions of this problem for the curious among you. First, notice that in all of the variants we've explored, we've only played this game once, not allowing the players to observe what happened during past rounds of the game and adjust accordingly. There's some really cool research that I'll link below showing that iterated plays of this game cause the guesses to shift lower and lower and lower, so that even in our imperfect world, we eventually get to the ideal solution of 0 given enough time. As another extension, remember that third assumption we made? The one where we assumed that everyone knows that everyone knows that everyone is rational? We did not consider what happened if we relaxed this assumption, mostly because it makes my head hurt, but thinking about this would bring this problem even closer to our real world. And that brings us to the end of the video. Now, chances are you won't be playing Guess 2/3 the Average on a daily basis. But I do think that the reasoning and intuition built up by thinking about this game do have real benefits for your life. Understanding what information those around you have and don't have is useful for all sorts of situations, from negotiating your next salary, buying a car, to winning an auction. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe for more videos just like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.